Iran isn't alone, and Iran doesn't stand alone when it comes to the larger opposition that exists in West Asia to Israel's onslaught, not just in Gaza, but the entire region. Because, of course, all of the news, the headlines are being taken up with, will Iran and Israel go to war? And whatever Iran's response is, it will likely be measured, calculated, and done with the very intention of not bringing the entire world into war because of Israel. It will be a response in self-defense to what was an act of war on itself. But nonetheless, the reason why Iran does not have to take incredible measures on its own to fight back against Israel is because there is a worldwide, but we are seeing a regional wide movement of resistance, real armed resistance, the kind of resistance that is protected under international law against an occupying force. And this resistance has been creating a lot of problems for Israel and the United States. And so recently, we're going to show that the response to what Israel has done, not just in Gaza, but of course in these war crimes like what happened in Syria against Iran, the response has already really started. So today, as of this recording, we're recording this on April 6th, we had the Haifa oil refinery coming under attack by drones. According to the Iranian news agency Mir, the attack was carried out in response to the Israeli regime's unprecedented crimes, and this was reported by the Iraqi resistance, the Islamic resistance in Iraq, which targeted the Haifa airport in the Israeli occupied territories. So the occupied port of Iliad has been targeted several times, also by Yemeni forces. We're going to talk about this, and the Islamic resistance of Iraq to declare support for the oppressed people of Gaza. So this is all in response. And so that happened today. It's unclear how much damage was done. But regardless, it is significant. And I just want to show you, I'm going to pull up a map. This is quite impressive. Okay. Just look at this. All right. You want to zoom in here. That is Haifa right there. Okay. Haifa's right here. All right. We're going really zoomed in. All right. Now we're going to zoom out. There's where Haifa is located. And I want to show you where Iraq is located. There's Iraq. So you're talking about a massive distance that has to cross Jordanian or Syrian airspace. Of course, it's most likely crossing Syrian airspace, but we know that the Islamic resistance in Iraq has a lot of forces. The Palestinian resistance in general has a lot of forces all across the region. And the Islamic resistance in Iraq has said that it's dedicated to training forces in Jordan. And this is interesting because the Jordanian government has been incredibly repressive to those who want to come to the aid of the Palestinian people, detaining people. And, you can follow good friend Richard Medhurst on those developments. But nonetheless, you have the Islamic resistance of Iraq hitting Israel. That's impressive. That means they have capabilities. They have military capabilities. They have drones. They have missiles. These are probably likely provided by Iran and also procured by these resistance groups in their own fights within their own countries. So then we have Hezbollah, of course. And I've covered that Hezbollah has the ability to rain down 1,000 cruise missiles in some ridiculously short period of time on Tel Aviv if they wanted to. But even just recently, they have downed Hermes drones. Okay. So the Islamic resistance in Lebanon, Hezbollah, announced its air defense forces downed an Israeli Hermes drone, 900 drone, violating Lebanon's airspace. And it marked the 11th operation for the day. So Hezbollah is very busy. Hezbollah is fighting, of course, in quote unquote northern Israel along the Lebanese border. And they are holding their own. They have basically depopulated that part of Israel because of the fighting that's going on there. So this is what's happening. You have Hezbollah also announcing its fighters have successfully shot down another drone on February 24th over a town in South Lebanon using unspecified surface-to-air missiles. So this is all showing that they can see what's going on. And I won't show it just in terms of imagery. It's not that impressive so far away, but this is all to show that there are capabilities that the resistance has that Israel is quite concerned about. Of course, the biggest indication of how absolutely limited the United States and Israel are in meeting their objectives, which is the complete eradication of Palestine and, of course, the continued control of the resources of the region, to dominate the region, to occupy it, to destroy and to destabilize it. That is the US's goal. Israel shares that goal, slightly different models, slightly different ways, and slight differences in how that goes about. But nonetheless, both Israel and the United States are joined at the hip when it comes to this larger goal. But there's no act of resistance, okay, that has been more fierce, that has been more effective than the Ansar Allah movement, what's known as the Houthis in the West. The Middle East Monitor, here they're reporting that they targeted 90 Israeli, US, and UK ships since November. Ansar Allah, of course, based in Yemen, really the leading political force in Yemen now. So it says the leader of this move of the Houthi movement, Ansar Allah, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, said in a televised speech yesterday that 90 Israeli, US, British ships have been targeted in the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea, and the Indian Ocean since the beginning of the group's operation in November. The Houthi leader stated that the group continues with its military operations in the Red Sea, Arabian Sea, and the Indian Ocean. Okay, this is serious. The Indian Ocean? We are talking about, okay, and I'll just pull up that map again. How about that? Because we're talking about a starved people, a people. Do you see what the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean? This is the ground that they're covering. Not only are they covering here, the Red Sea. Let me zoom in more. Here's the Red Sea. Not only are they blockading this, but they are also striking at ships headed toward Israel, all the way from the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean. A starved people that have been decimated and still are, as I will get to in a minute, decimated by US backed Saudi aggression all the way up until recently, up until the last year or so. And still there's a military operation going on, and yet they are fighting back hard. In just 1 month, operations reached 34, carried out with 125 ballistic and winged missiles and drones. The Houthi leader also pointed to the continuation of operation against targets belonging to Israeli enemy in the Eilat port, known as al Rashrash, in the south of historic Palestine. Neither Washington, London, or Tel Aviv has issued statements in response to this speech. But so while you have this massively effective, this has been effective, massively effective blockade going on, the reason why it's been effective is that the United States is showing now a willingness to diplomatically, and this is from Bloomberg, diplomatically engage with the Ansar Allah movement because of the impact that it's having. So it says the U.S. may revoke the Houthi terrorist label if they stop the Red Sea attacks. Washington is seeking diplomatic off-ramps, says Yemen's envoy. The Houthis have been attacking ships in the Red Sea since November 2023. The U.S. said it would reconsider its recent designation of Yemen's Houthis as terrorists if the Iran-backed militants cease their shipping attacks in and around the Red Sea. My hope is that we can find diplomatic off-ramps, said President Joe Biden's special envoy for Yemen, Tim Lenderking, who told reporters this in an online press briefing. To find ways to de-escalate and allow us to pull back eventually, the designation and, of course, the end of military strikes on Houthis' military capability. Okay, so the comment suggests Washington is once more leaning on diplomacy after nearly 3 months long of a campaign of airstrikes against Houthi facilities in Yemen. Those have failed to stop the group's missile and drone attacks against merchant vessels and warships, though the U.S. says it has managed to degrade the Houthis' military capabilities. Asked by Bloomberg News after the briefing if the U.S. was offering a quid pro quo to end their attacks on ships in return for revoking the designation, Lenderking said, "We would certainly study that, but not assume it's an automatic thing." Okay. So that's the point. The point is that this is having a real impact on the United States. They are kind of tapping out, in all honesty. If that isn't a sign of this, I don't know what is. And so here's the thing. One of the big reasons why Ansar Allah is so scary to the United States is because it is a force that has nothing to lose, that is willing to literally go to the source, and they're not alone. So if Ansar Allah is going to basically sacrifice everything for the Palestinian cause, that only empowers the rest of the Axis of Resistance, which, as Forbes noted not too long ago in March of this year, they're not the only group backed with cruise missiles that can reach Israel. All right. So, of course, they say Iran backed to make them seem scary. But, of course, Iran can reach Israel, as I've noted. And you have the rest of the Axis of Resistance having similar capabilities. So imagine if this got to the point where you not only had this blockade going on, but you had an intensified level of attacks. This is why Nasrallah, right, uh, the Lebanese movement, this is of the Hezbollah movement. This is why he says all the time that there is a problem brewing for the Zionist regime, and that is the fact that the resistance is strong enough should the time come where it's needed and where it's necessary. It's strong enough to not only hold its own, but to facilitate the collapse of the Israeli regime. So the Israeli military has confirmed that a cruise missile fired by the Houthis in Yemen hit an open area near the southern Israeli city of Eilat early Monday. This was back in March 2024. The Yemen-based group is not the only militia in the region with cruise missiles that can strike Israel. So they've launched several bullets. So the Houthis themselves have launched several ballistic and drones toward Israel since October. Really, they started in November. Israel's multi-layer air defenses and U.S. Navy intercepted several of these munitions. There's speculation that the Houthis used their longest-range cruise missile, the Iranian-designed Quds-3, since that's the only type of group known to possess a capability of reaching Iliad from, or I'm saying it wrong. I always say it wrong. A lot, whatever. I don't care. It's not what it's called. They stole that land. So from Yemen. Unlike ballistic missiles, cruise missiles can fly at low altitudes and follow a flexible path, making them less predictable and potentially difficult to intercept. It's unclear if the Houthi missile successfully evaded Israeli air defenses or if Israel merely determined it wasn't a threat to any populated area. While the Houthis' vast array of missiles and drones have repeatedly grabbed headlines since October, the Yemen-based group isn't the only regional Iran-backed group with missiles like these, which is significant since these other groups are also situated much closer to Israel. In Israel's immediate vicinity, there's evidence that Iran has attempted to help Hamas build cruise missiles inside of Gaza. So, of course, we know the Al-Qassam brigade. They have pretty, if you've watched these videos, I won't play them here because this channel will literally get shut down if I do. But um, if you just follow the Palestinian Resistance News Network, or if you follow anything on X and you see the Al Qassam brigades, you know what they're capable of doing. Further afield in the same month, Iran-backed militias in Iraq revealed they have Quds-2 cruise missiles, and we saw how they're hitting Haifa port with drone strikes. And then less than a week later, we have other Iran-backed groups that claim they targeted Israel's second city of Haifa, which was called a enhanced cruise missile named Al Arkab. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah also claimed a cruise missile fired from Iraq had hit Haifa and that Israel kept the incident secret. And this is the case. We don't actually know how targeted Israel has been. I had a hard time actually finding these stories at all. There's not a lot of coverage in the US media, European media, Western media, mainstream media in general at all. So, you have Ben Gurion Airport being targeted in Tel Aviv. Of course, you had the Eilat port that's been repeatedly targeted by Yemen and by other resistance groups. So, in a sense, the resistance is not alone. Okay. Ansar Allah is not by itself. Iran is not by itself. That's why the response to Israeli war crimes has been calculated, because War is not a dinner party, and it's also not about um, how badly you can destroy your enemy. It is about understanding your enemy's capabilities and understanding your overall and overarching goal. And the goal of these groups, of course, is to facilitate the liberation of Palestine as well as the liberation of the region from Israel and, of course, US occupation. But that cannot be done in one fell swoop because of the massively destructive consequences that would have based upon the fact you cannot trust Israel or the United States, essentially both of them, especially Israel at this moment, being rabid animals. When you think about their military strategy, their desire to burn everything that moves against them in any kind of way, peaceful or otherwise. That is to say that, or that is not to say that these groups cannot defend themselves and cannot stand up for themselves as all of this is going on, meaning that they have the capabilities to fight a war. And we should not be so remiss. They are already fighting and they're doing not only the best that they can, but they are making a real impact in the sense that at no other point in history has Israel's standing in the world and also Israel's future been more grim or bleak. It has never been this bad in its 70 whatever year history of brutal occupation and genocide. So here I just want to show you one last thing. As the United States is talking and saying, and this is why this is important, as the United States is saying, well, we need diplomatic off ramps because we cannot defeat Ansar Allah. And surely they're saying the same thing to Israel. You cannot go toe to toe with the entire resistance because that's what's going to happen if you decide to go into a regional war with Iran or with Hezbollah. Everyone is going to get involved, and you are not going to be able to get as much assistance as you think from us because we are also not willing to politically sacrifice everything for you, Israel. Like this is the struggle going on. The United States is willing to kill Yemenis, as you see here. Even when they're tied with diplomatic off ramps, they're killing 37 and 424 strikes alone the same day they're claiming they want a diplomatic off ramp. The leader of the Ansar Allah movement cited 37 casualties and 30 injuries from 424 US and British airstrikes in Yemen, disrupting global shipping. And targeting Red Sea International. So that's because of the movement. Okay. So this was reported by the Times of India. Uh, so, I mean, the United States is more than willing to allow Israel to commit a genocide. It's more than willing to in pockets bomb, destroy other countries. It is not willing to fight the entire resistance with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps at its head. It's not willing to do that. Why? Because the United States understands that that would be the end of Israel and that would be the end of the US's presence, short of a nuclear war. This is how bad it has gotten. This is the situation that the region and the world is in. Israel decided to cross that line into a genocidal campaign in Gaza, as it had probably always had planned, given all of the statements that we've heard from Israeli officials. This is not just a response to Al Qassam's military operation, the resistance's military operation. No, this is also a strategic imperative of the Israeli regime, and it always has been. There's a reason why Gaza in the West Bank and the divisions and the land grabs and the settler occupation. There's a reason why over 8,000 Palestinians have been imprisoned in the West Bank since October 7th. And it's because there is a plan to depopulate and destroy, ethnically cleanse all of historic Palestine so that Israel can get on with the goal of expanding even further than this. This is why there's a regional resistance. This is why it's important to note just how powerful that resistance can be and is. And it's important to note that when you're feeling disappointed, when you're feeling like the world isn't doing enough, just remember that these resistance forces are moving along a very delicate strategic, political, military, and economic landscape, which includes Israel and the United States possessing nuclear weapons, which I don't think either, if you understand these two rabid imperial entities, would not be shy to use if their interests were threatened. This is why this is going on in the manner it's going on in. But make no mistake, the resistance has been ready from the beginning and are doing uh, just an incredible job of placing pressure on Israel, placing pressure on the world, placing pressure on the United States to the point where the United States is beginning to tap out. The Biden administration is trying to find an off ramp. It just can't, because it has, as the United States ruling elite and foreign policy establishment has always been, it has never been able to crawl out of the hole it dug itself when it decided to give it all up, to give essentially into all of Israel's demands in order for political, economic, and military expediency and influence in the region. That is the main impediment. It's the United States that needs to be on the phone, actually asserting um, influence over Israel, but it won't and it can't. And that's why we're in the situation we are in, where it's going to be up to the resistance. It was always going to be the Palestinians and the region and whoever supports them in the world to determine the destiny for the region. And we're seeing it up close. We're seeing it day by day. We don't even know the extent of it really outside if we are not there ourselves, because it's not being reported on. So these reports definitely indicate that it's not just Iran that's going to be at war should something explode in this region because of Israel. It will be really the entire axis of resistance, and they are prepared to strike hard and strike back and move toward the goal of both Palestinian liberation and, of course, the the assertion of real self-determination against U.S. and Israeli aggression in the region. Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.